I call the 2,391st meeting of the Milwaukie City Council to order. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and Comcast Cable Channel 30 within city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card for those at City Hall or by emailing ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it's time to take comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list and chat. We will take comments in the order that they are received and seen. Again, comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. We ask that all Zoom participants who intend to speak label their Zoom username to show their first and last names for the record. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. For more information, contact the city recorder at 503-786-7502. Servicios de traducción en español está disponible cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Para obtener más información, llama a el secretario de la ciudad a 503-786-7502. Translation services are also available in other languages. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The City of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya, etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. And for this week's announcements, if you didn't get to participate in a Neighborhood Hubs workshop in October, please participate in the online workshop that is open until November 15th. Visit Engage Milwaukie to learn more. Join a facilitated conversation about what the word justice means and examine how it's applied in Oregon on Wednesday, November 15th at 6 p.m. at the Ledding Library. Are we closer to or further from justice for all since 2020? Join writer, artist, speaker, and producer Donovan Scribes for an exploration of Oregon as he lets music guide these critical questions. The event is meant for adult and older teen audiences who are 14 years of age or older. The city is once again hosting free leaf drop sessions for those who live within Milwaukie city limits on Saturday, November 18th and December 2nd, 9th, and 16th from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Public Works Administration Building. To participate, please bring along a utility bill as proof of residency. Both electronic and paper bills are accepted. Leaves are accepted in paper bags, plastic bags, or loose. However, paper bags are preferred. This service is free, but the city will collect non-perishable food for local families in need during each session. The annual Milwaukie Farmers Market is back on Sunday, November 19th from 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Stock up on the farm-grown produce for the holidays. The market will include craft vendors providing unique handcrafted gifts, To learn more about the market, visit www.milwaukeefarmersmarket.com. I'll also note that the Rotary every year sells beautiful wreaths and hanging baskets for the holidays that you order in advance and you pick up at the Thanksgiving market. So you can Google the Milwaukie Rotary and get more details about that. And that funds from that support a lot of their great activities in the community. For more information about each of these events and others, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukieoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. And one additional event I'll note is it's second Saturday, and the second Saturday is Saturday, and the second Saturday of every month is a work party in Menthorne Springs. We'll be clearing clematis and blackberry to get ready to do some more planting in Menthorne Springs. So come out and join us between 9:30 and noon this Saturday. All right.
Mayor Beatty, if I might remind folks, you have 50 minutes to get your ballots into a Clackamas County election.
An hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock. You're right. An hour and 50 minutes.
Okay.
I haven't fallen back yet, or whatever we do. But yeah, a little bit, just a few more minutes to get your ballots in.
Yeah, great reminder. Great reminder. Okay, Veterans Day Proclamation, which will be presented by Councilors Massey and Khosrowbadi.
Thank you, Mayor. This Friday, November 10th, is Veterans Day, and we have celebrated Veterans Day in this country for over 100 years. Veterans Day honors all veterans. Memorial Day honors, obviously, those who've given the ultimate sacrifice, but Veterans Day recognizes all those who've served, and there's roughly 16.5 million veterans in this country. About 6.5% of the population, about 1 out of every 15 people. And most of those veterans return to their communities, and they obviously bring, important skills that they've learned in the military. But more importantly, they bring the ability to work in a team. And I think that that's important, especially when you think about community and people giving back to the community, and whether you were an Army band of brothers or a ship crew shipmate, you all bring back that sort of ethos of service to your community. And I think that you'll find that veterans are a giving people, and I can look out to Jerry here from the American Legion Post 180, and they are much like other veterans organizations who give a lot to their communities. And that, for instance, they have a fund called the Corporal Diffie Fund that really helps people, veterans who are in crisis, that gets them some immediate resources to help them out before they sort of transition into the more formal service environment. So that's what Veterans Day is all about. And I would like to read the proclamation at this point. Whereas the United States first proclaimed November 11th, 1919 as Armistice Day to mark the end of World War I, the war to end all wars and to solemnly reflect on the horrific consequences of all wars. And whereas since 1919, the 11th day of the 11th month has come to be a time to recognize the contributions made by the millions of men and women who answered our nation's call to arms in the pursuit of world peace. And whereas Veterans Day brings communities together to honor military veterans and their legacy of selfless service and sacrifice, to remember the millions of civilians and military personnel who have died or been injured by war. And whereas the United States Department of Defense recognizes that the risk of future wars will be greatly increased by climate chaos and the resulting forced migrations due to devastating starvation, inundation, fires, flooding, and drought, and we should do everything necessary to decrease those effects. And whereas the city of Milwaukee has been proud to partner with the American Legion Post 180 and the Susan Lee Barlow chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution to recognize and honor veterans and community who did not come home. And whereas the city of Milwaukee recognizes the sacrifices by those who served our country so that all may pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Now, therefore, the mayor of the City of Milwaukie, Lisa Beatty, and Municipal Corporation in the County of Clackamas in the State of Oregon, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2023 to be Veterans Day in the City of Milwaukie.
You don't have to read the rest,
Yeah. There you go.
Great, thank you.
You get to sign it.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything?
Just briefly, I'd be remiss if I didn't say happy birthday to my beloved Marine Corps. Our birthday is November 10th, and followed by that is Veterans Day. Just that I think one thing I learned as a Middle Eastern Muslim in the military during a time of the Iraq and Afghanistan war is that our society today can learn a lot from our military. As Councilor Massey touched on, the camaraderie, the ability to help each other, regardless of where you come from. Because our military is defined by the different walks of life that come to this country seeking a better life. We can learn a lot today from that. And consider your neighbors your platoon or your unit, if you will. And let's just try to do a little bit more to be better to each other. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we have a proclamation declaring Small Business Saturday, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. A lot of people probably know that. You have Thanksgiving, you have Black Friday, and you have Small Business Saturday and Cyber Monday. They've all kind of become things over the last decade or so. I was approached by a national organization to add this proclamation. I wasn't approached by local businesses, and partially I think that's because we don't really have a functioning business alliance in Milwaukie anymore. And I hope that we're going to have some presentations from some new businesses today, and we did have similar presentations a couple months ago. I hope some of the new businesses in town and some of the existing businesses kind of bring back the business alliance, some sort of business alliance, because I do think we're lacking by not having that to promote things like Small Business Saturday, to promote things like in December, the Christmas ships come to downtown Milwaukie 5 times, and we could have a more lively downtown and more activities around that that would bring people down and support the businesses, the eateries, et cetera. So, I was pleased to do a proclamation on Small Business Saturday, and I will read it. Okay. Whereas the City of Milwaukie celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas, according to the U.S. Small Business Administration, there are 33 million small businesses in the United States. Small businesses represent 99.7% of firms with paid employees. Small businesses are responsible for 62.7% of new jobs created since 1995. And small businesses employ 46.4% of the employees in the private sector in the United States. And whereas 68 cents of every dollar spent at a small business in the United States stays in the local community, and every dollar spent at small businesses creates an additional 48 cents in local business activity because of employees and local businesses purchasing local goods and services. And whereas 72% of consumers reported that Small Business Saturday 2022 made them want to shop and dine at small, independently owned retailers and restaurants all year long. And whereas the City of Milwaukie supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Beatty, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim November 25th, 2023 as Small Business Saturday and urge the residents of our community and all communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and to shop small throughout the year. Thank you. And with that, we'll transition to our new businesses. So that's a great transition. And the first one, so we have three new businesses. So you're just going to tell us a little bit about their business here in Milwaukie. And the first one is Julie Molson from Freeman Barrelhouse. Welcome.
Thank you. Julie Molson from Freeman Barrelhouse. I had another business here in Milwaukie and sold it last summer to open the Barrelhouse. I'm right next to Bob's Red Mill. I'm a whiskey forward. I have a lot of whiskeys, but I also have espresso and I have taps. And yeah, what else I could say?
Do we have a graphic for her? I thought we did. Anyway, yes, Freeman Barrelhouse. It's right off of Highway 224. I was there for a birthday party last month, and it was lovely. Oh, there we go. Yeah, here you can see it. Yeah, are things going well? Yeah.
Going great.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm open 2 to 9 daily. So yeah, it's been going
7 days?
6 days.
6 days. And you're closed Sunday? Okay, great. Well, anything else you want to say? No? Okay.
So good.
No, but thank you for coming.
Thank you for the invite.
Sure. Our next small business owner is Angie Swim. Is Angie here? From that one, there she is. From that one vintage shop, which is a new shop over across from. Oh, she's accompanied by someone else who she can introduce. They're across from the food cart pod on 21st Avenue.
Yes, I'm Angie, and this is Katie. She is one of my vendors. So we are a vintage shop in downtown. We are near the food carts. We have kind of focused on more of the younger vintage, if you will. So our focus is Y2K, 90s, 80s, and a little bit of 70s. We're mostly a clothing store, and we do media as well, retro media. We wanted to kind of bring something different to Milwaukie and have something that was, so we have vintage stores in Milwaukie, but we wanted to do something a little bit more young. We're right by the high school and catered to that younger crowd. We noticed that Y2K is something that's really popping right now with the younger crowd, which, for us that are in our 30s, that's fun because we grew up in that. We're like, that's vintage now. But it's been a lot of fun, and the community has been amazing. We're excited to be there. We are really ramping up our campaign to get the word out right now because we are a vendor store. It is tricky because I have over 30 vendors there, so each person has their own section. They curate their own items, but part of it is really getting the word out right now so that they can get exposure to. And the vision behind this was really to bring something to Milwaukie. I live just right outside of Milwaukie. My business partner lives in Milwaukie. To bring something new to Milwaukie and young and exciting and fun, and kind of add to all of the fun businesses that are popping up right now. And also to support the vendor community. I was a vendor for a while as well, reselling vintage, and it's a hustle. We have a lot of people that work really hard and are constantly looking for the best items. I brought Katie here because she is an amazing vendor. She's also an employee at the shop too, so she kind of has a little bit of an idea of how things work there too, but if you want to say something, you can.
I've been working as a vendor selling vintage for just a year now, and something just in general to say is that these stores like Angie's, like vintage malls, if you're just a shopper there, it's not clear exactly what they are, but what they are is basically someone like Angie rents the space, and then anyone who Angie allows, or they apply, can come and be a small business within her small business. So just what I want to say in this setting is at one vintage shop, we have this mentality of just like put a price tag on it, put it in the store, it's for sale. and like people, new vendors are always coming to Angie and wanting to work there. So basically, if anyone wants to collaborate with vintage clothing being for sale and being a draw, and everyone who sells vintage is really good at social media, it's just like a really fun format or a medium to collaborate with. So if there's a bar that wants a rack of vintage one night to be for sale, but also then just all of the social media that comes with that rack of vintage, bringing people to your bar, that kind of thing. We resell stuff that is other people's trash, but basically what it is so community building to be able to just like create a pile of stuff for sale and people to come and look at it. So if anyone wants to collaborate with our store, we will always roll a rack to wherever and make a combo of happenings.
Yeah, that's a good point. We definitely have noticed that it's funny, we get customers that come in and I'm like, hey, have you heard about the new bookstore that opened downtown? They're like, no, I have not. And so I'm like, yes, there's a new bookstore today, and I went down and I talked to them and I'm like, hey, can I leave my flyers here? Also, do you have items that I could take to my store? So I think we're on a mission right now, and we wanted to share that with you guys. Is like to really like support the different businesses and really help everybody support each other, because there's a lot of that's happening. Like, well, I've never been there. Like, hey, you guys, how long have you been here? Like, we've been here for 2 months. I've never seen this place before, So, or like, hey, actually, the people Maeve's sent me to you. So it's really cool because everybody's very eager to help one another, and I really want to kind of just kick that in the butt and just get it going, like, come on guys, let's do it. So that was part of the reason that I really wanted to come, and talk to you guys too, is obviously to let you know that we're here, we're excited to be here, and we're just like, full of energy for it, and also that we want to find any way to like collaborate with other businesses and support each other to really like get this town, because it's a lot of people are coming. I get a lot of kids that are coming to the bins, to to Goodwill. They're like, well, I went to the food carts because I was hungry, and then I saw you guys, So there's a lot of people that come from everywhere to Milwaukie. So kind of getting them into downtown and getting them just excited about everything that's here has been kind of our.
And I guess we had a dream. We took a walk by the river the other day, and we were like, there should be a flea market along the waterfront, because Milwaukie has a waterfront, and a flea market should be by a waterfront. So we're gonna make a presentation and send it to someone.
Yes.
But we think there should be a flea market on the waterfront.
Yeah, yes, that is one thing. Like, there's a lot of areas that it can be utilized for different events, like flea markets. Like, especially in the summertime, because it kind of slows down here when there's no kids at the school, and well, at least in that area. But downtown is still busy. Like, yeah, we've got 99 East. Let's take advantage of that, because people are constantly going by, and there's so much beautiful space and area. So we've got a lot of ideas, and we've got a lot of support from vendors in the community from Portland too that are coming in, and other places too. I have vendors from Eugene. I have vendors from all over. So definitely, and they're all willing to like.
Because of the business model of Angie rents a space, and it's a community within a store.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whatever that means to anybody who's listening. It's a community building idea to sell vintage.
Yeah, it's a big family in that sense, and it's growing bigger and bigger, and it's kind of like, how do we get the rest of the community into this too? Because like for us, like we, if my store is making money, the vendors are making money, the community's making money, people are, coming in. So that's kind of the point. But anyway, did you guys have any questions? We talked so much.
Does anybody have questions?
Yeah, I just want to, first off, thank you for making Milwaukie your home. We're a unique city, waterfront property, I guess you could say. But just hearing your enthusiasm and your energy, and to point to what Mayor Beatty said earlier, you might want to be the ones who take this Milwaukie Business Alliance thing together, and I would love to help in any way, because you guys sound like what you're describing is what we need. We need the businesses to be together and come together and help us as a city to come up with the things that's required or necessary to make sure that you are all successful, and that we don't have shops that are closing within a year of opening. We want everyone to succeed here, and consider this a home for them. So think about it. Just throwing it out there.
Well, yeah, and I'm definitely willing to help in any way I can. And I love the store has, I knew that vinyl had come back for records, but I didn't realize that VHS and DVDs were back. And I'm like, I can still have mine. Yay, I knew I kept those for some reason. So I think you've got a really fun, eclectic mix of stuff there, and I do encourage people to go in and check it out. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, just really quickly. So I've kind of mixed feelings because on one hand, my entire existence is now vintage.
It's a trip to sit in that store. I'm getting used to it. I don't really like it.
I remember those. But on the other hand, we have a teenager we just were in there the other day. And it feels very welcoming. They feel very comfortable there. They're able to find new and exciting ways to express themselves. And I just really, as a parent, appreciate what you've brought to our community and how you make the feel of the store so genuine for youth.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. That's good.
All right. Well, thank you. And finally, we have Austin, and I can't remember Austin Price from. It's something. It's not just camper van rentals. There's some word in front of that, right? Excursion.
Yeah. Excursion van.
There we go. Excursion van rentals. Thank you.
So my name's Austin Price. I do have a business partner. He couldn't be here. He's enjoying his honeymoon, probably on a beach in Mexico, sipping a margarita. Would be my best guess. But that's okay. Just wanted to give a little background to the business to start, I guess. We've camper van rentals. We started with one van right at the beginning of the pandemic. Roped my business partner in. It sounded like a great idea. We've expanded now to 10 vans. We do have build side of the business as well. Through building a fleet of vans, we've been able to hone our skills in building camper vans, which is a in-demand skill set these days. Everyone wants to experience van life. That part of the business is out towards the airport, but we do have our primary rental location is right off of 32nd here in Milwaukie, just down the way from Milwaukie Bowl. The easiest way to find us is to go online, excursionvanrentals.com, or you can find us on Instagram at @excursionvanrentals. You'll be able to see the different vans that we have, pick one that suits your need that's available for the dates that you want, and then reserve that. And then we'll be reaching out to schedule a time to pick up. We do have a promotion going, so if you go on our website and enter GOBBLE20, you get 20% off through Cyber Monday. So I'm excited to be here. Desi, thank you for having me. This setup does feel a little bit like I'm addressing Congress, but that's I don't have too much more to add, but if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Austin, where are you located?
Just right off of 32nd, pretty close to Van Waters corner there. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your vans right now, so really awesome.
Yeah, he's got some nice looking vans.
Yeah.
I know somebody who does that kind of conversion on a 1-by-1 basis, and I know it's a lot of work.
That's a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Okay. And Balfour Park donation acceptance. It says introduced by the city manager. Are you making some introductory comments? Or?
I think I'm asking some fabulous humans to come up to the dais actually right now. So if Lisa Gunionrinker, Lisa Lashbrook, And anyone else from the Parks Foundation could come up for a few minutes.
It's not just the Parks Foundation, it's also the Ardenwall, Johnson Creek neighborhood. They started this plant sale, I don't know, a dozen years ago. And then the Parks Foundation came in on the fun once the Parks Foundation was up and running about 5 years ago. But it was really the neighborhood's gig first. And yeah.
So I'm in a unique position. I'm Lisa Gunyarinker, and I'm on the Milwaukie Parks Foundation as well as part of the Ardenwall Johnson Creek Neighborhood Association. And one of the instigators or starters of the plant sale that helped raise funds for Balfour Street Park. And I think it was either 2014 or 2015 that we started. So not quite a dozen years, but it seemed like a long time. It was a lot of work. But with neighborhood support, and year after year, we would get plants donated and pots donated and soil donated and time donated, and we would raise money with everything, all the proceeds going towards Balfour Street Park. And then in 2019, I believe, the Parks Foundation came in to support us, which gave us an extra big push. We got twice the volunteers, we got a lot more PR, and a lot fewer plants were left after each plant sale. So, plus, the plant sales got much larger. It took up 2 driveways instead of 1. So now we're here finally because thanks to our elected representatives at the time, it was Karen Power and Kathleen Taylor got money for our 3 neighborhood parks, Balfour Street Park being one of them. And the neighborhood and the Milwaukie Parks Foundation now have what we consider a substantial amount of money to donate to the park as well.
I'd like to say one thing. I'm Lisa Lashbrook with the Parks Foundation, and without Lisa's dedication, perseverance, stubbornness,
and driveway,
open and welcoming attitude, and the willingness to basically run a nursery for 12 years. It's like these plants didn't just go away. She took care of them throughout the year, the ones that were leftovers, and none of this would happen. So, special thanks to Lisa.
Well, none of it would have happened if the neighborhood hadn't been involved and neighbors came out to support us, so in getting this done and support parks. So that's where we are. Everybody's here.
Well, and I think if it's okay, what I'd love to do is actually do this as a photo. So I'm wondering if we can have council come out from behind the dais and up front, and if you all wouldn't mind coming up, and we'll come back and take photos. Oh, look at you go! Good job.
It's recyclable, reusable.
They also brought a photographer. Yeah.
I would love to. Okay. That would be good. All right. I'm gonna put the TV in here. Here we go.
Okay, I want to get Milwaukie in the background, so I think we're good. All right, everybody say parks. Parks. I think we're good.
Okay. We're ahead of schedule. That hardly ever happens.
Can I just ask a question? Sure. Where can I get one of those T-shirts? Because I know they're Ardenwall T-shirts.
Made in Milwaukie has our leftover stock.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Or at the winter solstice event where we're going to be vending hand warmers, LED glow sticks, and our flags.
Okay. Cool.
And it's currently posted on the city website. Yep. So if you go to our events calendar, it's on there. Thanks.
All right. Great. Well, thanks everyone for coming in. We're going to move on with the rest of our agenda. Community comments. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community member comments regarding city business that is not already on the agenda. Before we begin, is there follow-up from the October 17th community comments, Ms. Ober?
There are not any comments at this time.
Okay. For those in person who wish to speak, please submit a yellow comment card found on the table just inside the chamber door. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand reaction to alert staff that you wish to speak. And when instructed to begin, click the microphone option to unmute yourself. If you are calling in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also submit a comment via email to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during community comments may be new, this is not the time for discussion, but the city manager will respond at the next council meeting to those comments that require follow-up. So far, I have one yellow card, and that is Ann Pernick from Safe Cities. There she is. Yeah, I think they've got, oh, I think you can go to either side, but I don't know if all the mics are on, so that's probably the safest. Yeah.
Hi, Mayor Beatty and council and staff. I'm Ann Pernick. I'm with Safe Cities at Stand.Earth. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I work with local government leaders and advocates all over the U.S., including in Oregon, on phasing out fossil fuels, including through building electrification. I want to thank you for the opportunity to give testimony tonight. It's my first time in this nice new city hall. It's really lovely. I watched the work session via Zoom earlier this evening, and I wanted to share just a few comments on that. It was great to hear the discussion about the possibility of raising the utility license fee for methane gas. And the question came up, Natalie Rogers spoke to the fact that there's precedent in Oregon for cities having a different license fee for different utilities. So she spoke to that, but then there was a question about it afterwards in a statement that maybe it hadn't been done before, and I wanted to affirm what Natalie said, that there's precedent for different licensing fees for different utilities for a city in Oregon. I also want to note that the constraints that are put on local building electrification in Oregon have inspired a lot of diligence by attorneys and advocates and local government leaders who want to make sure that Oregon is part of this critical work. So Natalie Rogers also spoke about the nitrogen oxides approach to building electrification. But then someone else said that perhaps you all should wait until Clackamas County takes action, even though in the same discussion it was noted that the county is not moving very quickly on some initiatives. So I want to urge you to not constrain yourselves in this way, and to instead, and I appreciate the support that some on the council expressed for exploring this approach, bringing in some speakers, some experts to help with the exploration of it. And the reasons for moving forward are so many. Cities have their own responsibilities for local health and safety. It's not just the county that's responsible. Councilmember Massey, you noted the real military risk of climate chaos. That's one thing that we all sure want to avoid as much as possible. In 2012, four houses in Milwaukie had to be evacuated because of a gas leak. Last year, 99 was closed in both directions in Canby for a while because of a gas leak. And 1 in 8 cases of childhood asthma in the U.S. is caused by gas stoves in the home. Ashland, Oregon is exploring nitrogen oxides as one approach for building electrification. It's not the only one they're looking at, but they're definitely looking at nitrogen oxides. So Milwaukie would not be the only city in the state looking at that approach. And with all this in mind, I urge you to continue your work, both looking at increasing the licensing fees for methane gas and also nitrogen oxides for building electrification. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good timing. You had your 3 minutes down just right. Scott, do you have anybody online looking like they want to?
Mayor Beatty, no one on Zoom and no comments on email.
Okay, that's our only commenter. So we will move on to the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes minutes of the City Council October 3rd, 2023 work session, October 3rd, 2023 regular session, and October 10th, 2023 study session. A resolution removing current members and appointing new members to the Citizens Utility Advisory Board. A resolution authorizing a purchase agreement with Northwest Playgrounds for equipment and surfacing for Scott, Bowman Bray, and Balfour Parks. A resolution authorizing a grant agreement for the Milwaukie Park Foundation's grant for the construction of Balfour Park. A resolution authorizing a grant agreement for Metro's Nature and Neighborhoods grant for Scott Park, Bowman Bray Park, and Balfour Park. A resolution authorizing a grant agreement for the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department's local government grants program grant for Scott Park. And a resolution authorizing a grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Administrative Services for design and construction of rooftop solar panels at the Milwaukie Public Works Johnson Creek campus. Does any member of council wish to remove a consent agenda item? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve consent agenda as presented.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Okay, passes unanimously. And now we will move on to a presentation from the city engineer, Jennifer Garbely, on Road Design 101.
All right. Well, thanks for having me tonight. I guess the most important thing is if you've got a question or want to talk about something, please interact. You don't need to wait till the end to ask questions because this is educational. This is for you. So please, if there's something you want to know a little more about or that's unclear, let me know. So we're going to do a little overview. We're going to start with a policy index. Where can we find Milwaukee's design requirements, road types in Milwaukie, traffic calming toolbox, intersection failures, street surface repair methods, sidewalk construction priorities. And then we'll take any more questions if we have anything additional after that. Oh, and it's not moving. There was like a box in the middle, so I got rid of that box. Okay, yeah, I guess that'll work. So first, our policy context. We've got our transportation system plan, which will outline the goals, policy, and elements that we seek to implement to improve our transportation system. And then we have our public works standards. And our public works standards are specifications in which we use internally and externally with our developers to construct improvements in our right-of-way.
And our public works standards revisited yearly or just kind of irregularly as needed? How does that work?
Well,
I didn't think that was a funny question, but okay.
it's a great question. Yes. I would say the last time that we've come back for an update's probably been about a year and a half. I do have to say things change every now and then, so on an annual basis is nice just to make sure you're keeping things current. Products change or not become available, or businesses go out. If you specify a certain product, it's nice to be able to say, hey, we're going to update this to a new product that is available, so people know where to look for items. We do have an update coming. This December, we'll be presenting some updated to the Public Works standards. Typically, I'm doing more smaller ones, but since we're doing a pretty big cleanup of the Public Works standards, we're going to bring it to you in January for actual adoption. And we'll go through a 30-day public review period as well before it comes to you. So that's coming in December. See me again.
So when you say public review period, you're like putting it out there on to businesses and contractors and developers and stuff to
post it in multiple spots. Yeah. Usually we have a copy of it in the library, here at City Hall, and then probably Public Works also, if anyone wants to stop by any of those facilities. And then we'll post it probably online too, as an additional access way.
Great. Okay, thank you.
So, we use the TSP as kind of like our guideline of what kind of projects we're going to be doing. The Public Works standard is how are we going to build it, right? How wide do we want lane widths to be on an arterial roadway, for example. So we get to our road types in Milwaukie. This is in our TSP, so this is what is there right now. Obviously, we're going through a TSP update, so this could potentially get updated in the next round, which is interesting. I think one part of it shows is on the regional side that McLaughlin is not a regional road through Milwaukie, a regional route, which it clearly is, so it's probably an update I'll be looking at. We usually don't also maintain regional routes, right? Those are ODOT facilities. So I would probably be looking at actually updating this in the TSP, showing through McLaughlin and 99E that that's actually a regional route. But we'll see. Arterials are here in red, kind of orange-red, however you'd like to see that. I think the important part here is, we're looking at 10,000 cars per day as traveling on these roads. So that's our King Road, that's Linwood, that is Harrison, as far as that goes. Then we have our collectors that come through, and those are 5,000 to 10,000 vehicles per day. There can be 2 to 3 lanes, and ours are 25 to 35 miles per hour. And then the rest of the roads are our neighborhood routes and our local streets. So one thing that we've talked about is our SSMP program. And that program was created 15, 20 years ago. It only reflected arterial streets and collectors. And as you look at this map, it's a very small portion of Milwaukie, which means for the last 15, 20 years, our local roads have just been degrading. And we call that how we evaluate pavement in our city is called the Pavement Condition Index, PCI. We use a program to track it. The downside is if you're not populating that program, it deteriorates roads faster than what they're actually doing. So that's what I'm facing right now.
Sorry, can you clarify that?
Yeah, it calculates what basically the curve of how something is degrading in your city. But you have to add data points to change that curve. So the last data point we added in was in like 2019. We're now at 2023. So it's saying, oh my gosh, you pretty much have gravel on the ground. Well, we're not quite that bad. So we're looking at seeing how we can do in-house condition assessments of our streets and seeing if we can actually do that a little more frequently to add those data points to give us a little bit more understanding of where our streets are actually sitting. Because if I look at Street Saver, it's going to say it's even lower than what I'm anticipating to be. And what we use this for is to determine what type of pavement fix or repair we're going to do on that street. And so right now I have to kind of juggle, well, we're going to do this one. So we're working on that. Anything else about what type of roads we have in Milwaukie? All right. Traffic calming toolbox. So, what is traffic calming? Strategies that reduce automobile speeds or volumes, mainly through the use of physical measures to improve quality of life in both residential and commercial areas and increase the safety and comfort of walking and biking. We're going to go through 4 different areas: horizontal deflection, vertical deflection, volume measures, and other measures. So horizontal deflection, this is where we have full bounce, chokers, chicanes, we're moving streets, we're doing skinny streets, we're narrowing lanes, center medians, traffic circles, and offsetting intersections. And we use a combination of all of these things when we're designing projects. We have vertical deflection, raised crosswalks. The biggest one we have right now is the plaza that's out by the post office. That's a completely raised crosswalk and plaza. It's all in one. We haven't done any raised intersections yet, but it's a possibility depending on if we needed it. And then we do speed cushions. There was at one point speed humps in here. We don't do speed humps anymore. And the difference between that is the speed cushion actually has a cutout. And the cutout allows for our fire trucks and our safety vehicles to get through easier. So they prefer to actually do a speed cushion. So we pretty much, that's what we installed on Home and Wood and 42nd Avenue in the last couple of projects for actually speed cushions.
So now some places do what I've heard called speed tables. And it's almost like a crosswalk that's elevated as a speed bump, as a speed cushion, but it's like a longer stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be more like a raised crosswalk in a sense.
Okay.
I've seen that near schools typically. You want to be able to get have the people sit up a little bit higher, right? It also slows traffic down because they have to slow down to go up and over it.
We haven't used those though.
We haven't used it yet in a toolbox. I'm still getting a little bit of pushback from the fire department as far as they said, okay, you could do the speed cushions, but we're not super excited about the raised crosswalks. So I need a really good reason to put it in, I think, or a really good spot that makes sense. So we're still thinking about it, and it's still in the toolbox of consideration. So volume control measures, full and partial closures, center medians, diverters, we've done a few of those. And then you can do one-way streets. We don't have any one-way streets at this point, I think. I don't think we have.
22nd River.
You're right, 22nd River. Yep.
That's I can't think of another.
I can't think of another either. Yeah, you're right. And then other measures, pavement alternatives entry treatments, on-street parking, truck restrictions, signal timing, enforcement and education, speed, reader boards, shared streets, trees and landscaping, and then paint markings. We'll use a lot of these features throughout the city.
Before you move on, yeah. So can you go back to the first one, the horizontal? Yeah. So, these are the kind of things I remember, you know, the previous iterations of the council discussing, and the previous mayor was a big fan of a lot of these. I think you've been really successful with my perception. You know, I'm not a traffic engineer, but my perception is you've been really successful with speed control on Linwood by narrowing the lanes, right? We do hear some complaints about that, but I wonder, do we have any data? Do we have before and after data on speeds?
On Linwood?
On Linwood.
I know we have before for sure, and I would assume if not, I can actually get it.
Yeah.
So I can look into that.
I mean, I think that's, you know, speeding on Linwood used to be a big problem. And I get the sense it's really not a problem anymore. But I do think it'd be good to have that data for future conversations that may arise with other projects, I guess. Yeah. And then on the sort of other measures, one of the things I see Portland do is these, and I kind of like, I will say, because they can be changed without too much if they're not successful, is these giant concrete planters. They just have these giant round concrete planters they use sometimes to close an intersection, sometimes to just slow people and make them go around, whatever. You didn't have something like that in your list, and I just wondered what you think of that kind of.
I would say that would be under one of these items. We haven't tried it yet, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I like the idea that it's planted, but who's gonna water it?
Yeah.
Neighbors might not love me if I'm adding big concrete planters.
Yeah, you might get neighbors who want their traffic slowed on their street who are willing to take them on. I mean, I know, for example, 29th is one we've talked about a lot, and that there's some neighbors who are always advocating for more traffic calming there because it's our greenway. So just throw it out there as a low cost and reversible kind of a tool that can be tried. You know, anyway. Yeah, I do expect the TSP advisory committee to talk about this quite a bit. I think there's some people on there who are pretty passionate about this topic. So,
I believe so too.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to intersection failures. So traffic designers use level of service ratings to understand how well a transportation facility is working for all users. The Highway Capacity Manual defines the level of service scores for evaluating different roadway facilities. The important part is if you get an F, level of service score in your intersection, then that pretty much means it's not cycling enough through, you're not clearing the queue, or even at a stop sign, we use the same, there's too long of wait times that's occurring. And the important thing I think I learned this last month was at Harrison and 42nd, we actually do have a failure. So during peak time, that left turn, east left-hand turn into 42nd actually fails. So At first, I thought it was more when the Greenway comes in, that's going to add more traffic to that intersection. We're already looking at an intersection that is failing, just to be clear.
Harrison and 42nd, you're talking about the four-way stop? Okay.
Yeah, four-way stop.
Okay.
The one we're evaluating right now.
Not the one where you put in the
Nope.
traffic change.
The diverter, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
Okay.
so right now we're evaluating Harrison and 42nd. First I was told that it does fail when the Monroe Greenway goes in because you're moving people off of Monroe to Harrison. So what happens there? And so they said, well, you're actually failing now. Actually, the data supports that you do have a failure that is happening at that intersection. Not the whole intersection, but certain turns there are happening. We have identified also Johnson Creek and 42nd. That one's a little more complicated because we're tied with Portland. So in order to really fix that, we're gonna have to work with Portland to address that area. We have Lake and Harmony. That one we're gonna need federal dollars to fix because of the railroad, so close proximity. But the upcoming one that we're keeping an eye on is Harrison and 32nd. And where that, it becomes a bigger problem is if the Murphy site develops. We will have a larger impact, and then you have also the new development at Hillside going in. So that intersection is one that's going to be looked at even more so, and I hope it gets talked about a little bit more in the TSP as well. The level of service is not the only metric we use to evaluate and prioritize. So we're looking at multiple things also in an intersection and how does it function and who uses it. Accidents, what other kind of accidents are happening at that intersection. So we work with PD to kind of evaluate what are they seeing, what type of incidents are happening to make safety changes and things like that.
So regarding Lake and Harmony, I learned from the city manager recently that there's some design from 15 or 20 years ago for an elevated flyover intersection or something that goes over the roads. I mean, I've heard forever that we need grade separation. We need the road separated from the railroad. But I didn't know there was actually kind of a design for that.
I haven't actually physically found the design.
Yeah.
I've heard a little bit about it. It is in the regional transportation plan.
Okay.
As far as that goes.
You probably know this, but just to put it on everybody's radar screen, there is talk. I mean, there's a plan for high-speed rail. There was work done 10 years ago on a state high-speed rail plan that would call for double tracking the UP Railroad through Milwaukie as part of any high-speed rail. That's considered the low-hanging fruit to get high-speed rail moving. At that point, if that really, comes to fruition and there's some federal dollars coming into high-speed rail now, is that going to be enough? When we have leverage, I guess, when they start talking about double tracking, will that give us some leverage to get some investment in that intersection?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I'd be pushing for it for sure because that intersection is awful.
Yeah.
And dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they were to add another track, that would open up the ability to have some conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not easy, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends also if they're staying within their right of way versus if they need more right of way from us to make that happen.
Yeah.
All right, street surface repair methods. So we have a crack seal program. Once we do a crack seal, we want to then go over the top of it with a slurry seal. That's like your minimum, basically, repair system we try to do that every year if possible. But we're limited to what streets can actually, if they get too far, how would you call it? If they go too far down and have too many cracks and too many failures, then we're at a mill and inlay. And we rate that, we use our PCI for that a little bit as far as, hey, we're in, 50 to 70, we're going to crack seal that and slurry seal it. Then we're kind of using the mill and inlay, maybe for a little bit lower system. Then you have full depth repair. The hard part is we don't got a lot of money. And most of the money is supposed to go towards collectors and arterials. So we've actually been pushing the envelope on this a little bit. Things that are probably should be completely full depth repaved, we're actually milling and inlaying as long as those streets are low volume. So they have less than 1,000 cars per day. This is allowing us to put on some structure to the road so we get a little bit more life out of it before it completely crumbles. We're also testing out geofibers that add structural components to our AC to see if we can get a little more life out of it with that grind and inlay instead of repairing the entire base. As soon as we have to repair the base, we now trigger stormwater requirements, which means we have to put in a lot more infrastructure to carry that water and make sure it's getting to where it needs to go. So we basically reduce how much full depth paving we're doing, but putting those dollars back into mill and inlays, increasing our crack and slurry seal to try to help those local roads and neighborhood routes. First grind and inlay project happened this year. So far I've gotten a pretty positive outlay, and we're prepping for the next one to happen next year.
So are you kind of saying this is a experiment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm testing different materials, different additives to the AC to see if I can get a longer lifespan out of it before I need to come back and do another either grind and inlay project or crack sealing or slurry sealing. So I'm testing.
Can you talk about the anticipated life of all the different ones?
Crack seal, you're probably looking at like a 3 to 4 year, or then you're going to cycle back and either crack seal or slurry seal. Mill and overlay, it depends on what type of impact you're getting and how thick you're doing. But you're really in the 5 to 10 year range. Your full depth, we're hoping we're getting 15 to 20, 25 years when we're looking at that.
And the mill and overlay, does it matter whether, in terms of how successful it is or how long you would expect it to last, does it matter whether the street has curbs and gutters or not?
Not necessarily. Really. I mean, it helps the street when you do have curbs, so you don't have water intrusions from the side that erode your base. But it's not necessarily, a lot of the streets we did this last year were actually ones that don't have curb.
Can you talk about the, on Lake Road, you used permeable pavement, but we haven't used it again. Can you talk about that and why or when that's appropriate to use, et cetera?
Yeah. So Lake Road was a full depth. We came back through. We widened for bike lanes and then also did FDR, which is full depth Proclamation, and you basically turn over the street, take the existing AC, and then treat that to create a base. When we do that, it actually usually saves us money. We just have to make sure we have enough depth so utilities are not in the way. So that's an arterial. And an arterial means we want to put 8 inches of asphalt to create that roadway. We want that much structure because we have trucks and buses on that on a regular basis. So we decided to do 5 inches of regular asphalt and then do a 3-inch top lift of permeable AC. And so we did the research to look at that, and what we found is that streets that are straight have constant cars moving through, doesn't have parking on the street, that a permeable will work really well. So we put in that permeable. It basically is treating any water that comes off of it. We've got excellent so far on our water sampling, and we're tying it right to a non-pervious asphalt. And how is it doing? The difference in the color is extraordinarily amazing. Then at the intersections was our biggest worry. So anywhere we've talked to people, they see unraveling because of turning maintenance. And so we said, all right, we will do regular asphalt in the major intersections. So 23rd, 27th, and those are the two school intersections, and then the intersection at 34th and Oakfield. So those are all with regular asphalt. You can actually feel a difference when you're driving it when it's raining. Your car it feels different. It feels different to go from the pervious to the actual regular AC. You kind of feels like you're slipping a little bit when you're on the regular. But that water is pulling through. I am looking at doing it on another project. I may do it on King. We're still considering it. It's a straight road. It doesn't have parking on it, and traffic. There's a lot of traffic, so it moves. It kicks things up, so you can maintain it. I've talked to Public Works. They said it's performing really well from their end as well. They come through, they street sweep it every 4 to 6 weeks. So far it is doing well. It's holding up. We're not having it unravel. So we feel like it's actually performing really well in that sense. So I am looking at another spot. I don't have it approved yet for actually treating stormwater. I think I'm gonna have to do a combination of things because it doesn't absolutely pull out everything. Some of the metals don't quite drop out completely. So for water quality, from a DEQ standpoint, we still have to do a little bit of treating there. But it definitely does reduce how much I need to treat, which is exciting. It also gives that little bit of a capacity because that water's coming through there and it's getting off of the roadway quickly, so you don't see standing water on Lake Road.
Do we actually think it's safer?
I feel like it's actually
Less likely to have accidents because of losing control on standing water?
Yeah. You don't have spray coming up on really big storm events.
Mm-hmm.
We also noticed it was performing a little better in the snow. We don't get tons of snow, but the snow that we do get, it's actually melting faster because it's warmer and the water has somewhere to go, the ice has somewhere to go. So we're seeing better traction when it actually snows. They haven't had a snow plow that route, which is great.
That is great. And why is the fact that there's no parking relevant?
Because parking, you don't always, so when you street sweep, right, you're cleaning along the curb line. And if you have parked cars, then you're not consistently cleaning and picking up, and you have things, cars that are just sitting there, that could also drain and clog your porous zone.
Okay.
So I also wouldn't put it on a local street that doesn't have very much volume, because it's also about the cars going through over it is pushing debris out of the way.
creating a good
Interesting.
system as far as it goes.
Thank you. I didn't understand all that before, so that was helpful.
We also just won an award at the fall APWA conference for sustainability for putting in Lake Road pervious system. So it was recognized.
Nice. Yeah, that is exciting.
All right, let's talk about sidewalk construction priorities. This is important to the design team because this is what we use as kind of like a metrics of when we're looking at a project and how we're scoping it. So we first start off with, well, we need to be in ADA compliance, state and federal laws. That's our top governing option. Then we're moving to tree preservation. We have our goal here to, climate action. And so we are working on the engineering side. How do we preserve trees as much as possible in these sidewalk projects? Then we move to budget and schedule. Available right away. How do we stay within available right away? Is really a nice governing fact for us. Or can we get an easement and not have to buy right away? Grade changes. Anytime we have a grade change, we're checking to see how that affects our sidewalk projects. Existing retaining wall and obstructions. Those are expensive to move. So when we can design around them, it allows our dollars to go further. And then of course we've got public works standards, TSP, then parking, and then purchasing right away. That's kind of my last resort. If I don't have to purchase right away, I don't. As far as it goes. Does that make sense? And then we will talk about design considerations, community input, existing utilities, power poles, narrowing travel lanes. Are we including bike lanes? Road speeds and classifications. Are we going to change, Linwood would be a perfect example of where we had 35 miles per hour and we said, no, we really should drop this. We're in a school zone right here. Can we get it to 30 miles per hour? And we did. Safety, transit stops. That's our next partnering that we are constantly asking, is this transit spot where it should be? Or should it be moved? Or does it need improvements to have access to it? Enhanced crosswalks. And then of course there's mailboxes. So there's a lot of things that go in to actually designing and retrofitting a sidewalk here in Milwaukie. And so we consider all of these things as something. All right. Any other questions or comments? Other questions?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Where would the moonroofs fit in? Would that be the part of like the horizontal deflection?
Be a shared road. You're really sharing the space or whatever. So low volume, shared road. I think what you're going to see though is a little bit more in this next TSP, the shared road concept and not necessarily the lone wolf concept. I don't know. I feel 19th Avenue went in. It's really acting as a shared road space. The plans asked for a 5-foot dedication for someone to walk on one side of the street. No one's using it like that. So at this point, I've actually pulled that. The material to put it down on an AC doesn't stick. It would be a nightmare to maintain.
Sorry, which material?
It's a dome. It's a tactile dome that basically separates the pedestrian and the travel lane for the style on 19th Avenue. So at this point, I have not had it installed.
So for those who don't know, back in like 2016, there was a whole big there was a whole big project with the Island Station neighborhood, the planning and engineering about designing a design for 19th. And as I recall, that whole idea of having it not, having this tactile thing and supposedly a place for people to walk was for the blind. But you're right. I mean, people just walk in the street there.
So we still can achieve that in a sense of it's curbed. So the curb change, it changes as far as like material wise. It has a different feeling. And so that's the same thing we're doing on Ardmore North. We're putting in a mountable curb so you'd be able to tell if you were leaving the road or not, but still utilizing it as a pedestrian, bike, and vehicle space.
So are the winners still being considered? I feel like they'd be beneficial in some of these smaller neighborhood streets that don't see as much traffic.
Well, I mean, that is what Ardmore North is, right? Yeah. It's a shared street. Yeah.
You're gonna see it.
Well, I'm thinking about the east side. That's why we don't have like much there. So that's what more I was referring to in terms of the winners. There's a lot of neighborhoods in there, Hector Campbell and in Linwood, that be a benefit for.
Yeah, definitely.
And then also, my question is on the traffic calming measures as well. The radar signs and the speed bumps, because from some research that I've done in the past, it's statistically the radar signs, speed signs are more effective, and they're more cost effective as well. They're less of a carbon footprint as opposed to speed bumps. They're cheaper to maintain. So I'm curious with that, and the fire department issue too, right? Even with those two, I'll be honest, sometimes I try to squeeze my car between those two tires lanes, right? So, and that's even difficult. And I have a small car, so I can only imagine, a fire truck or an ambulance rushing to an emergency. Even if you get one of those at a certain speed in a little car, it rocks it pretty good. If you're trying to get to an emergency or transport somebody, it could be further hindrance to that, right? Or
it's
potentially dangerous.
Probably one of my least favorites also, the speed cushion.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking more of the.
There's other options that I prefer, that I think it just kind of depends on the situation, but I absolutely agree with you on that.
But do you agree that the radar signs are a good solution?
I haven't installed a ton of them, but it's nice to get more data. So I'll be working.
Yeah, there's a lot of data. Like in Clackamas County, you can actually request it on your street. I requested it to be on our street. I never got it on our street. But looking at the data, what the statistics show is that it's more effective. Because with that flashing light, especially around school zones, I was reading that the average speed drops about 9 miles per hour.
Well, I remember when the police department first got them here. The police department has them here. You don't have to go to the county, but and they have the portable ones. They move around. But when they first got them here, the thing we were told was they dropped the speed for about 2 weeks.
You have to move it around.
They have to keep it moving.
You
But if
can't
you
just
keep
keep
it
it
in one
in
place, indefinitely, it
stops being
doesn't
functional.
stop slowing people down.
Like the speed bumps do the same thing when you leave those gaps. People try to avoid them anyway, so they don't slow down on that part, right? So,
Sure.
It's kind of a catch-22 for each one, right?
But there's many other options here than just speed cushions and things like that. And
We're big fan of roundabouts too. I think roundabouts would be huge.
maybe we'll get another one.
I think that would be the answer for 42nd and King, as opposed to that guardrail, some sort of a roundabout there. Yeah, because diverting that traffic onto, or just everybody's just turning right onto 42nd and then going into the neighborhoods, right? So it's causing more traffic within neighborhoods where, kids are playing.
I'm looking into it. We're gonna see if we have available right away to put one in. But I don't have an answer for you tonight on that.
Oh yeah, no, it's a suggestion.
Yeah.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
May I
Councilor
come in?
Massey, did you have something?
Yeah,
Oh, I was,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
sorry, over here.
Go ahead.
Counselor.
I just had a quick question. I appreciate that you had examples of different types of methodology, and I'm really interested in looking at how you can blend placemaking with road design, so that your built environment not only encourages folks to think about alternative modes of transportation, but also kind of has a sense of creating a sense of place and a sense of kind of like like a special space that you're occupying, like a sense of ownership in. So I'm wondering if you are also excited about those types of innovations, and if so, if you have some ideas that we might be able to consider as we're, talking about projects like these, or maybe in some of the TSP meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really curious what we'll find out in the TSP, right? What the community is going to kind of bring to that. I haven't really given it any time at this point, just because the TSP is like, okay, let's get through that and see what comes out about. But I really do feel like we have an opportunity between markings, more bike not boxes, but like using our green paint here and there, showing people where they can be, making intersections for people to cross safer, so it's not such a big task. On King Road, we're looking at actually putting in some medians to be able to make that feel not so daunting to get across, and marking that well, so people also use the crosswalks. I find if you don't mark it well, people will just be like, whatever the closest route they can to move.
This is totally off the cuff and random, but the other thing that we may want to look at is if that's what you're looking for is placemaking with transportation pieces, components. Salt Lake City actually has been doing a lot of that work over the last, I'd say, 15 years, because their roads are so huge and the blocks are so large. They've had to break everything down into smaller chunks, and they've had to reconfigure the way roads come in and out of those spaces to make them feel smaller and more walkable and more defined in that way. I'm happy to connect you with a couple of people over there for the TSP process.
Yeah, I think that would sound that sounds interesting. I think the scale of some of our roads and arterials can be very daunting, and by being able to kind of chunk that into smaller, more digestible pieces for folks to be able to just interact with their communities a little bit differently, might be a really exciting thing that we could try. We have a small enough scale. We have some really exciting projects around hubs, and like to have pieces of our comprehensive plan and the TSP kind of churning at the same time, and be on the cusp of some great opportunities to build out considerable pieces of our infrastructure. But if we think about how we're building a sense of space and a sense of identity while we're doing that, then I think that might be really engaging for folks.
It's also an opportunity to do a little more in-house, right, design. The smaller projects are easier to design in-house, so that's exciting as well, because I've got a couple engineers that really enjoy doing transportation and water and focus and utilities and solving these problems to engage.
I think it'd be interesting to watch the little park at by 7 acres that had to be replaced, and see how much use it gets. And as we build out Monroe, to think about little nodes of benches, seating areas, places for people to gather or stop or whatever. Counselor, did you have more? I'm sorry. Good. Counselor Massey?
Yeah, Jennifer, a little bit off subject, but what are you seeing, in the availability of vendors, contractors to do this kind of work And are we still seeing the kind of price pressures that we saw a couple years ago?
So we just bid out a smaller project and actually got 9 bids.
Wow.
What I gotta say about that is, one, people want to work in Milwaukee. There's other cities that aren't getting any bids or very low bids as far as it goes. So we are doing a good job of attracting contractors and vendors that want to actually be here in our city. So I think that has a lot to do with, the team and how they function and how they perform as far as getting a project done, being accessible, and creating a partnership with these contractors. Pricing, yeah, we're still seeing a little bit of inflation happening, but we're not getting hit as bad as other cities, I would say. I felt we did get actually a pretty good price on the Washington Area Improvement Project. Yes, it was over the CIP budgeted amount, but we added additional work to that scope that we identified during design. And so it was under the engineer's estimate, which was fantastic. So
It's encouraging.
it is encouraging, yeah.
Thank you.
And I think it was Jen who said something to me last week. So if I'm attributing it to the wrong person, please correct me. ODOT's also canceled a large number of their construction projects. They're low on budget. And so as they're seeing reductions on their projects, there are also just more contractors available and they're looking for work. So that's also expected to be some of the impact that we're going to see as more bids. Whether or not that makes them competitive is a whole different conversation, but we are expecting over the next couple years to be a good show in town for a place to do work. It's part of the that dam is getting so much attention to at ODOT. The dam.
Oh,
It's because there's not as much design work right
they don't have anything else to do, I don't
now.
know.
They have things to do,
Okay.
but no money to do it.
No questions? No. Okay, I had a couple more. One was, so you talked about how you think about sidewalks and, what all the factors, but really we have the safe list, right? The safe maps that tell us where we're gonna build sidewalks. And we're never going to be able to build sidewalks everywhere. And so I thought it'd be helpful if you could talk a little bit about local improvement districts. I have raised this with people who want a sidewalk but are on a street that's not going to be prioritized under safe. So I just thought it'd be helpful if you'd talk a little bit about this.
So we did have one since I've been here come through in a little bit different scenario. It was a developer that had to make the right-of-way improvements and set up a special district to get paid back once the other lots sold. They only built out, one of the, I think, homes, but there was like 3. And so it's an interesting process. It is available and is a possibility. We haven't done it for an actual sidewalk programming yet, or had interest, I guess. So I'd have to probably work with Justin a little bit more on what that would look like for an actual sidewalk infrastructure.
Well, as I understand it, if say you live on a street and you want a sidewalk, and you're not anywhere on the SAFE program, if you can convince your neighbors on the block to all say, we really want a sidewalk and we're willing to pay for it, you can, and you have to get so many signature, like 80% or some number of signatures.
Yeah, you could form a local improvement district to pay for it.
Right.
And the city works. I mean, you've been involved with those with streets and things like that, I think. But I think that would probably classify as a public improvement that could be subject to that.
Yeah. Well, that was always my understanding, and I've tried to explain that process a couple times to people over the years, but I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. If they're getting questions like that, there is a tool to do that if you want a sidewalk and you're willing to pay for it. And the other thing is that there's something called bankrupting, where the city finances it out for you, right? So.
Yeah, the bankrupting though, one of the things we've run into is that a lot of the SDCs where they want us to bankrupt the improvements, or most of those costs go to other agencies. And so there's been a desire that we'll bankrupt for over 50 for Parks Department or district or for West or something. We have not had the cash to be able to do that because they still expect the payments.
Right, but just building a sidewalk wouldn't invoke SDCs for any other jurisdictions. So there are tools that the city could assist neighbors who really want a sidewalk and are willing to invest some money into it. I don't know whether we'll have that or not, but I just feel like people should be aware of that the city has some tools for the people who live on streets that are never going to rise to the level of a safe project. So, I thought I had another question for you. Oh, crosswalks. We had somebody here years ago who came in and testified several times about needing more crosswalks. And, in Oregon, as I understand it, every intersection is a crosswalk, whether it's a painted crosswalk or not. But of course, people don't feel as safe in an unpainted crosswalk. Does a crosswalk, we have a lot of streets with no sidewalks. Does that affect our ability to build a crosswalk? Or to paint a crosswalk? Yeah.
Yes, you would need some type of landing or ramp on each side. Even if you don't have
a sidewalk, you just build a ramp to nowhere.
Yeah, you build a ramp to nowhere.
Okay.
I've had to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So that part is, if you're gonna mark it, you gotta have a ramp on either both sides. You can't just send it and not have a spot for them to hang out.
Okay.
Now, I mean, we have marked sidewalks, even though the two ramps are maybe not completely at the moment ADA compliant, but they should be identified on our ADA transition plan to be updated at some point. And so that's where we kind of cover that aspect, because there is times where you have an older ramp that still functions, but you need to update that, the crossing, the marking. So the ramp would still be placed on the ADA transition plan to be, updated at a future time. But you do need to have two ramps on either side of a marked crosswalk.
I've heard that before, and it always strikes me as kind of crazy. Yeah. Well, just that it's, I mean, I get why, I guess, in terms of what the ADA is all about, but it does seem like we're sort of, what is the saying about the enemy being perfect? The perfect being the enemy of the good. It's where we couldn't create more pedestrian safety because we can't make it perfect, because the cost of making it, of building that is a lot more cost than painting some stripes on it.
Right, and it's also looking at ADA options of people that have mobility issues, right? And if you don't have a place for them to stop and be able to rest once they got across the road, that's really what they're looking at. That's one of the issues, right?
Why say every intersection's a crosswalk?
You're right.
You say that if you can't put a crosswalk there.
And that's why you see the signs, though, on McLaughlin that say actually closed, because that's the only way to, you have to sign it to actually close a crosswalk. So when we put in the Kronberg Bridge project, we had to put those signs, even though you would be crossing to nothing, because of the trolley trail that goes through there and the intersection that technically that's a crossing. And so we closed it, and you have to sign it on both sides. And I was like, really? There's nowhere for the person to go, and there's a bridge. It's quite interesting.
Great. I had one more question.
Sure. Go
ahead. It was to touch on what you said. Glad you beat me to the punch. Because we did get an email a while back, actually in July, from a member of the public about an specific intersection on Southeast 17th and Southeast Ochoco, about issues that pedestrians have had at that intersection, and if saying that all intersections are crosswalks, this person was asking if we could maybe work with the city of Portland to put some sort of signage there. Because if we can't paint the crosswalks and maybe some signs, because they put them on billboards on 224, but that doesn't really do much. But if we had them, like, I remember when I was on PSAC a couple years ago, or 2-3 years ago, there were signs that we passed out to the community that said slow down signs that we passed out to everybody in our NDAs. Maybe PSAC can come up with another design for every intersection of crosswalk, just to remind drivers within our neighborhoods. And then for the busier ones that don't have crosswalks, that we share jurisdiction, if we can maybe work with Portland on.
And you're talking about 17th and, is that Ochoco?
Southeast 17th and Southeast Ochoco.
I can't remember that email.
Any sort of signage to remind drivers.
Yeah, that area needs improvements. It also has the rail right there.
Right, and this person was saying that a lot of times drivers will sometimes yell at me from crossing about it. There's been a lot of
that's the intersection by the Goodwill?
Yeah. And
it is a mess.
It goes from, when you enter Portland, it's 20 miles per hour, but on our side it's 35.
35?
35.
Oh, we need to drop that.
Yeah,
we should be dropping that. Oh, man. I thought it was 30. That's fine. Yeah. That intersection, I will tell you, when I first was elected, I did a police ride along, and I did it on Black Friday. I did it on Friday after Thanksgiving, and I did it at the evening, and I thought it was going to be exciting, and nothing was going on in this town. It was dead. But one of the things that did happen was some lady made that turn on Ochoco and high-centered on the railroad. So I do think there are some, I do think that there's a lot of issues around that intersection there. Okay. Any other questions? Nope. All right. Well, thank you. This was really informative. I'm glad we did this. This is great.
You're welcome.
All right. And Emma is next to talk about medallions.
Transportation infrastructure talk continues. That's with a slightly different flair. Good evening, Mayor, Council President, and Councilors. I'm Emma Sagor, Assistant City Manager, and I'm here tonight to give you an update on some plans we have around installing some new medallions on our Main Street. And Jen's going to stay up here with me because the way that the time that we want to install them is during some engineering work her team will be doing this spring.
So I have a very short presentation for you tonight. I'm just going to give you a brief history of medallions on Main Street. We already have a few, and I want to talk to you about sort of the timeline that got us to this point, why we are proposing installing some bronze medallions in the spring, and then we'll just get to questions and any discussion you'd like to have. So, to start our history lesson, we'll still go back to 2000. In 2000, that's when the Milwaukie Downtown and Riverfront Plan was adopted. As part of that, there were also these public area requirements adopted by ordinance that basically specify design requirements and specifications for work that happens in the downtown and waterfront area. In those requirements, there are specifications around if the city wants to install medallions on the sidewalk, they can, and it refers to both bronze and granite medallions. Then in 2007, the beautiful medallion you see there, which is granite and terrazzo stone, was commissioned and installed on Main Street on the corners outside of historic City Hall, commissioned by a local artist. So then in 2019, when the city was doing the South Downtown or SODO project, and had an opportunity to rebuild an intersection at Washington and Main. It's a great opportunity to once again put more of these beautiful medallions in. At that time, a contract was executed with the same artist to create those medallions and also create a template so that we could make more of that style in the future. Unfortunately, that contract was not fulfilled. We did not receive the template or the completed medallions from that. So right now, these pictures show what you can see at the intersection of Washington and Main. We've completed the project, the intersection looks great, and we have some plywood placeholders over where medallions would go. There are 3 of those placeholders because the southwest corner, which is that bottom right picture, hasn't yet been rebuilt, but am I right, Jen, to say that it will be rebuilt through this next phase of work, so there would be a spot for a 4th medallion?
Yeah, the 4th medallion will be installed with the Coho project, so when that development goes through, then we would actually, so the goal was to actually have all 4 mains so they matched and they worked, and then we would save it until we were ready to install it.
Thanks for clarifying that. So because we were not able to receive the template for the granite medallion, the city worked with Gabe Storm, who's done a lot of great graphic design for us, to come up with this design that we think really echoes and complements the existing medallions, but this would allow it to be cast in bronze. The other benefit of bronze is it's really great for weathering different climate events. It's nice to walk on. There's a lot of examples of people putting bronze in right-of-way. So this is the proposal. This would be the design that we'd like to use to cast or forge these new, I've gotten to talk about foundries through this project, which is so exciting. So we've got quotes from foundries to make these 4 bronze medallions, the cost of which would be incorporated into the budget for the project in spring 2024. So that's our proposal. Because again, this is a bit of a change from what the original plan was. We did want to come to council, make sure you were aware that this was our plan, and answer any questions that you might have about that.
Any questions for staff? Are you formulating a question?
I don't think I have any questions. I was wondering if there was a heavy metal version that we could look at, but this will do.
This will do.
Hey, looks good.
Yeah, I think they'll probably hold up better. And they're probably like less treacherous in ice as well. Yes.
A little easier to maintain too on the public works side of things. They're not as slippery.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I guess if you're looking for nods, you got
our nods.
You got your
Great.
nods.
We'll proceed with our boundaries.
Smelt away.
Thank you very much.
Sure. All right. So, the other item we have is the return of the tobacco ban resolution. It was emailed to everyone. a week or so ago, 10 days ago, and it's in your packet. Did anybody have, I mean, we sort of had general consensus on sending one before, but did anybody have any edits they wanted to make to the actual language of the resolution?
I mean, earlier.
Yours were incorporated,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Okay. If nobody needs any further discussion, I guess I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the resolution in support of restricting the sale of flavored tobacco products and protecting kids from a lifetime of nicotine addiction.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution in support of restricting the sale of flavored tobacco products and protecting kids from a lifetime of nicotine addiction. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. None heard. It passes unanimously. All right. Last item, council reports. People have any meetings to report on? Sure.
So the last water consortium board meeting, they were finally able to fill out all their executive committee requirements, and they distributed a strategic plan. It basically asked people for final comments they want to adopt it in February. I think it's I like the plan because it lays out three broad areas of that the consortium is working on, and tied to that is the strategic plan and the new budget are actually very closely aligned. So I think it's well done, and the strategic plan actually has a SWOT analysis, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats section on it. So I thought that was done. So we expect that to be, accepted in the February meeting. Additionally, the revision of the intergovernmental, the IGA, is to be, they're looking to incorporate it next summer. And so Peter and I are going to, look at that. I think it's going to be okay, but I mean, it's already, you've seen a lot of eyes already and that kind of thing.
So it's what every city that's a member has to sign on to?
That's correct. And so I think they do that every 4 years or something like that. Just of note, some of the sort of emergency preparedness elements of that the consortium works on were actually put kind of into a ready status this last summer, because that fire that was out in the gorge was very near that major reservoir for the city, which had the filtration plant there, and they were afraid that it could be damaged if the fire had gone any further like that. So they kind of had to dust off a lot of their emergency preparedness material and everything like that, and which kind of shows that the value of an organization like this. And so unfortunately, they did not have to use that. So we'll have another meeting in February.
You got things today?
I was tempted to say no and watch your face. Yeah, so I wanted to give an overview on the Clackamas County C4 committees. So those are, there's the C4 committee, and then there's a C4 Metro subcommittee that consists of cities that are within the urban growth boundary. So this is a committee of Clackamas County. It focuses on housing, transportation, and land use. Housing, I think, more recently has been expanded to be able to include conversations about supportive housing, some of the homelessness outreach, and land use. I think as we are coming into conversation about the re-up of the urban growth boundary and some of the discussions there, I think that'll pick up. But for the last several months, largely our conversation has been focused on transportation, because we're in the midst of a regional transportation plan update. These are updates that happen every 5 years, And it's under the umbrella of Metro regional government because it encompasses transportation investments of all different types of modes. So, motor vehicle, transit, walking, biking, etc. But within the Tri-County region. So there are a lot of regional discussions, as you might imagine, across all the cities and then at county levels. And then each county has their own way of filtering all of these conversations up to the Metro Policy Advisory Committee. And then after Metro MPAC, there's a lot of PACs. So I know it's almost 8 o'clock, but here we go. So everything goes up to the Metro Policy Advisory Committee. Then they have the TPAC, which is your Technical Advisory Committee, line, in policy level staff that are going to take, all of the recommendations and make a little bit more sense of them before it goes to, wait for it, JPAC. And that's the Joint Transportation Policy Advisory Committee. And so then there's discussion there. And then finally, everything goes up to the Metro Council. So the process for this time frame, for the re-up of this RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan, started way back in October 2021. And, I just have like a play-by-play for every month. I'm just waiting to see Desi's face. I have highlights, don't worry. If you are interested in all of the details, I can send you that information, or you can find it at the Metro website. But where we're at right now is that the Regional Transportation Plan has boiled up to the MPAC level, and recommendations were made and approved at that committee meeting 2 weeks ago. And so now that'll go to the technical advisory folks. They'll clean things up if necessary, and then it continues on its way. So within the C4 work of Clackamas County, there has been a toll strategy subcommittee that has been really looking at what are the particular interests of cities that are largely adjacent to proposed tolling projects on 205, but not exclusionary to any other cities that might be interested. Spoiler, I didn't go. But it's important, they give updates back to the C4 and the C4 Metro folks. They have put together a values document that was adopted by the C4 committee. They would like cities to consider adding their logo to it. So what I'd like to do is share that around to the council, and then at our next regular meeting, we could discuss if we'd like to add Milwaukee's logo to that. It states out some specific values that Clackamas County has around the conversation of tolling. I'll let you read the letter in its entirety, but a lot of the transportation investments involve ODOT, and so there have been, I guess you could say, somewhat adversarial conversations between many of the regional cities and ODOT around the larger discussion of tolling, and so I think if y'all indulge me, I'll send the letter around. Give you a chance to kind of review it, and then we can have a little discussion at our next regular meeting. So let's see, what else would be really helpful to know. There have been conversations about climate action plan work. There was a subcommittee that was doing that work. That committee has ceased to meet. They've wrapped their work. That work was presented to the Board of Commissioners in June. The housing theme for the discussions around these tables is largely centered around the supportive housing services measure and allocation that's coming into each of the 3 counties in the metro area, and then what happens with those investments and what Clackamas County is doing with that. So I actually had a conflict for last Thursday night's meeting.
in which they received an update from the Health and Human Services folks. So when we meet again at our next regular meeting, I'll have a chance to have gone through the video and I'll have an update on supportive housing services. But I wanted to highlight that within the regional transportation plan, it includes, all of our transportation folks have been deeply involved in prioritizing, the projects that are in our CIP. They've been involved in the technical review of these documents. There are a few projects that are within a listing called Nexus projects, and I might not be able to answer any more specificity around this, but it's the idea behind it is these are the projects that are adjacent to tolling and would be impacted by the congestion around tolling. And so there are cities like West Lynn and Oregon City and Wilsonville who have a great number of projects that are listed on this Nexus list. Milwaukie doesn't have a whole lot that is connected because we're pretty buffered from 205. But there are three that you've heard about in updates that we've had, like the 224 Lake Webster intersection project. So that's called out. Two enhancements along 99, so 99 from Gladstone to Milwaukie and River Road corridor from Gladstone to Milwaukie, and those are bike and pedestrian enhancements. So they're making kind of like a little bit more rounded corners, making it a little bit safer, more visibility, adding some protections for cyclists and pedestrians. So those are in there.
Those as Nexus projects too
Yeah.
that are impacted by tolling?
Yeah, and actually, I can also send you, if you're interested, or you can find this in the packets for the C4 meetings. There's a whole matrix that goes through and it explains why they believe this project would have been impacted by congestion. So, it's limited to 150 words, so it's like a Twitter version of that impact, but it'll give you at least, a snippet. The other area that we've talked about in the last couple of meetings is around the state transportation improvement project or program. So those are capital program funds at a federal and a state level, or construction on state or local roads. It can include public transit and active transportation projects, but it doesn't include things like operating or maintenance costs for highways. So, we've in meetings had Jen talk to us about STIP and the STIP projects. And so that's another intersection that this committee has with the work of the city. But again, not huge, standout highlights as of yet, but anything that aligns with Milwaukie in the categories that are coming up for STIP funding, then I'll bring back in updates. The planning for STIP right now is looking at the 2027 through 2030. So the planning really goes out pretty far, which, on one hand is we have a lot of time, but on the other hand, as we're dealing with other infrastructure projects and any type of advocacy that we want to do at a built environment level, it is kind of important to be paying attention to those timelines because they start now. So outreach for STIP planning is already underway. The funding allocation discussion in terms of what sort of funding might be available, we should see in November, maybe even a little bit in December. Project scoping and selection comes up in 2024-25. So if we're thinking about anything that we want to advocate for, or something that's on a list and we want to bump, then now is really the time to be having that conversation. And then that goes for public comment and final approval in 2026.
the takeaways for that whole conversation pretty much are that the cost of doing business continues to go up, and that we have federal highway formula funding that really just isn't consistent over time. It's not a reliable funding source over time. We also see in this next timeframe special formula funding for federal highways is ending. So there will be a decrease in some of the funding trends that we've seen. And then also not reliable would be motor fuel tax, state highway fund, and it seems like those are more volatile than not. I don't know if that has to do with electrification and less folks at the pump or not. I don't have any background to follow that up, so it's just pure conjecture at 810. The priorities for that area of work are safety, public active transportation gaps, ADA needs. So we were talking about, what the ramps look like and what our liability and obligation looks like. Other jurisdictions are struggling with this as well, and we're woefully behind on, across Oregon's probably not alone in making sure that we have that infrastructure built out. Also mitigating climate impacts, maintaining existing infrastructure. Let me see. Okay, I'm almost done. Hold on. Don't fall asleep yet. The one thing that I think might be interesting to folks, because it pertains to our neighbors in Happy Valley, the Sunrise Corridor Community Visioning session, or visioning, what do you call those? Process is open. That community corridor is between I-205 and about 172nd. And they're looking at how to right-size their infrastructure improvements. They're focusing on community needs. They're providing equitable access. But those goals, I don't think that they've been able to fully define. So what they're doing right now is there's a project kickoff. There are calls to join steering committees for folks. So if you have friends, colleagues, that live in Happy Valley and want to be involved in shaping what that looks like, now's the time to get involved. The other thing that I think is really interesting about that project is that they are engaging a leadership cohort. And so they're actually working with community residents and with community-based organizations to bring lived experience and expertise and this deeper knowledge of how folks are using that corridor, and they're bringing it intentionally into the project. So not just relying on, sending out this postcard and then whomever signs up for steering committees is who you have on steering committees. They're really making an intentional effort. There are some best practices that I think are just beginning to evolve around leadership cohorts like that. We ran one in our neighboring county to the north, and paid for those folks to be able to it's at the end of their workday. They have other things going on, and their expertise is really valuable. So we actually allocated funding for them to participate, and provided childcare and provided food, and some of the. I think this is. I think it's an opportunity for us to think about the type of engagement that we do as jurisdictions, and something like transportation, which is not always the most exciting, to get people to come to meetings and participate, and to share really valuable insight. Sometimes it takes a little bit more. So I think that might be everything. For right now. Supportive housing, I'll cover at our next regular meeting. And if you have questions, honestly, I can't guarantee that I will be able to answer them at this particular time, but let me have them or email them to me, and then I can follow up at our next regular meeting.
But it does sound like you probably want to have more of an RTP discussion early in 2024 to see if there's things that we should be trying to position ourselves for. I mean, as I recall, our big projects in the RTP are the bike ped path along Railroad and
Do you mean RTP or do you mean STP?
I mean the STIP. So they have to be on the RTP to be considered for the STIP, right?
Actually, I don't know if that's required.
Oh, okay.
It might be, but I don't know.
Okay.
Let me find out. But the preliminary areas for the STIP, I think that might be an interesting conversation for you know, like if you're interested in that, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody is gonna want to know about that, but that planning process is coming up.
Well, I mean, that is how we got money for, 2 cycles back from Monroe. That is, I guess I thought maybe we'd be building Monroe before we had to start worrying about Railroad, but if they're already planning out to 2030, we probably don't want to wait another cycle. So, Railroad, potentially the Oak Grove Lake Oswego Bridge, that one's got a lot of preliminary work to happen though. I don't know what else might be out there in terms of projects, but that's a conversation maybe we want to try and get on the books for early 2024.
Well, I mean, honestly, I wish Jen was here. That's actually the only piece of that I think is missing right now. But I think generally, if you all want to go push, Railroad was the next one on the list of funding priorities that we built into the SAFE program.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the most likely if we wanted to go in order. We also were going to have the 99 project for the Cowan Dam. And so that's the other one that I think we just probably want to be watching for if there's the right hole for it. And I haven't talked to Neil about what the right fit is for that. But if the STIP has any funding that could be used on that, it would be great. So I don't know of any other projects that were high on that list besides those two. If you're comfortable, I think it's probably just a good thing to take into the C4 meetings and to start conversations on.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'll also go back through the materials for that meeting and see if there's anything that kind of comes to light, and then I can bring that back in a couple weeks. So yeah, no problem with that. If I can divert us back to the conversation about tolling, because I think that there's one piece that I wanted to highlight from the MPAC meetings. So C4 has representatives that go to MPAC, and I'm not the representative, I'm the alternate. So, but because the conversation is so involved, you just both have to go. Because if I had to sit in for the representative, I would be woefully underprepared if I wasn't a part of those conversations. So at the last meeting, there was a motion made by Clackamas County to remove the construction portions of ODOT projects from the RTP just to move forward with the planning and the preparation of it in the RTP, but that would require there be regional conversation about every project that then ODOT was bringing forward, and not only regional conversation, but it would require an amendment to the RTP. And this is a process that has been years in the making. So so I did not have a vote. If I had had a vote, I think I would have differed from my Clackamas County peers, because it's an extremely bulky process, and there are opportunities to push back, but when jurisdictions feel like you don't have that relationship and you haven't seen traction in pushing back on things, then what you resort to at times is saying, okay, well, you have to come back and give me approval every single time. And so that's what happened, and then the recommendation passed. What will happen now? Passed MPAC. It'll go to that technical advisory committee, and then it'll go up to JPAC, and then it'll go to Metro. So I don't know that that will, in the end, be a recommendation that's included in the RTP, but I will be watching that one because I personally feel like I would have differed on that decision making, and I want to make sure that you know that. So if you have any questions about that too, I'm happy to talk about it.
I guess, I mean, that sounds good to me, actually, but I do wonder if, I'm looking forward to what you send us about tolling, I guess I'll say, and we can discuss it next month, like you said, but I also wonder, supposedly there's a ballot here in the works on tolling. And if that gets on the ballot, you know, it seems to me it's super likely to pass, and all of this, you know, agonizing about tolling may be for naught. But anyway, I guess all of that is for next month once we've seen the letter. And yeah.
Would it be helpful to, like, do you want me to put together some information about that potential ballot measure and include that in what I send out to all of you so that you have that to take into consideration as you're looking at this values document?
Sure. Okay, that'd be helpful.
All right, I'm seeing tired nods. I've made it to the end of my yellow notepad. So.
Can I ask Rebecca one question? So I think I got a, you know, as I've thought about this, you know, tolling is obviously a very passionate topic within Clackamas, and you described the, you know, the organization that you're working up through, which is pretty complicated in itself. But I guess I just wonder what, you know, Multnomah and Washington County think of all of this. I mean, do you have any sense?
She surely has a sense.
Is this a loaded question?
It may be. I'm not smart enough to know that it was loaded.
Well, full disclosure to everyone out there in TV land, I work for Multnomah County. And so I am privy to some of those conversations, although I will not speak on behalf of Multnomah County electeds. I think, you know, I will say that at the impact table, you have representatives of a good representation from all three counties that are at that table. And so it's up to those jurisdictions, and, you know, they're all made up of electeds that are going to make up their own mind, and you know, votes sometimes go one way and then you think it's going to go another way. But there is good representation at that table. There's also good representation at the JPAC table. And so I believe that all three counties have had an opportunity to voice their concerns or their opinions throughout the process. There's also been a really robust opportunity for public engagement. They've gone back out at least once on this. So yeah, I'll leave it there. But it's tough, you know. Each of these jurisdictions has their priorities and their unique constraints that they're working within, and not everybody's going to agree. Yeah, it's government.
Thank you.
All right, is everybody asleep? Was that a good taste?
That was excellent. That was a good update. We appreciate it.
It's been a little overdue, so thanks for indulging me.
I think I sent everyone before I went on vacation an update about the conversations going on about urban and incorporated areas and planning and housing capacity and stuff. There was a presentation today at the legislature. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. So I may have some update on that next time around, but I don't really have anything more than what I sent you before I went on vacation. But it's been a very interesting conversation to watch. All right. If nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
A second. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None heard? We are adjourned.